I hope you're all having a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. It's always great to sit around with the family and polish off the turkey and potatoes and pie before crashing on the couch in front of the hockey game. It's a true Canadian tradition. Although I wonder if some Canadians will be too busy attacking the system that made it possible to enjoy it. The Occupy Wall Street protests, which have somehow morphed into just occupy something, are coming to Canada. Should we be excited? Should we be proud? I'm just going to take a shot in the dark and suspect the citizens of Adler Nation are neither. Disgusted and irritated, more like it. And why shouldn't they be? At a time when we should all be giving thanks for what we have, these protesters are doing the opposite. Not only do we live on the wealthiest continent on the planet, you won't find more personal or economic freedom anywhere else. Certainly not in China or Russia, Saudi Arabia with all that tar-free oil, or every European country that is collapsing under the weight of its own welfare state. Sure, we point out when the Canadian and U.S. governments try to overstep their boundaries, as we should, but at least they have boundaries. Should we blame the big banks for our financial crises? We could. We could also blame Fannie, Freddie, the centralized U.S. housing agencies for failing to protect homeowners. We could blame the Fed, the Federal Reserve, with its ridiculous low interest rates. We could also blame the governments themselves for spending the world deeper and deeper into a ditch, as if they think that's a good idea. And in many cases, we could blame some of our own fellow citizens for not learning how to manage their own budgets before it's too late. I'm sure that's hard to take, but it's true. Let's look at the other side for a moment. Here, no matter who you are or where you come from, you can go to school, get a job, open a bank account, own property, run a business. You can move freely throughout your country and the rest of the world. You can even make your own decisions about your family life. You have the right to do all of these things under a capitalist system, even if individual circumstances make it hard for you to do them all at once. Under a capitalist system, you have individual circumstances. Do these so-called occupiers appreciate all of this? Do they appreciate that they have the time and resources available for all this protesting instead of being forced to devote days to the motherland? Do they appreciate that the iPhone, BlackBerry they're using to get out the crowd, direct products of capitalism? Heck, do they appreciate that they're allowed to think and speak differently from others without being shot? Because when they call for socialism, that's what they're calling for. And there are some important numbers to factor in as well. First, the number 36. 36, that's the percentage of charitable contributions made by the top 3% earners in America. 3% are making 36% of the charitable contributions. And here's another number for you. Double nickels, 55. That's the percentage of federal tax paid by the top 10%. 10% of Americans are paying 55% of the tax load. For all of you out there backing President Obama's calls for a millionaire tax. Third, number 10, the amount of dollars you can pay for a bag of heroin on offer at the New York Wall Street protest. Maybe next time they'll come to Vancouver and get it for nothing. And here's another question. Who are they reaching by keeping up with this farce? I'll tell you who. People who already think like they do. Left-wing radicals who say they can't stand the scourge of capitalism, but benefit from it every single day. But as far as the average John and Mary Canadian are concerned, they don't have time for this. They're putting in an honest day's work so they can put Thanksgiving dinner on the table for their families. At the end of the day, that's what we all want. Socialism can't give us that. Never has. I hope you think about that when you're making the leftover turkey in the fridge into sandwiches to eat on the lawn of your legislative building. All that yelling and sign waving sure works up an appetite. And that's Canadian common sense. The Occupy Wall Street movement, now a couple of weeks old, popping up across the U.S., even as far away as Hong Kong. Get ready. It's coming to Canadian streets this coming Saturday. A lot of nut jobs have joined the ranks, but the nucleus of the movement is an outrage over inequality with capitalism and the pursuit of profit is the root of all evil. Iran is calling it the American Spring. Should we laugh that one off? Or could ongoing economic woes give the movement more momentum? Joseph Klein is the author of Global Deception, the UN's stealth assault on America's freedom, and Barack Hussein Obama, the United Nations, and radical Islam. Joseph, thanks for doing this. I want to talk to you about the Middle East, but first, what do you think of these protesters being labeled as the American Spring?
Well, I think it is a joke. These are a bunch of narcissists who are having their day in the sun. They're dancing around, playing bongo drums. They're a motley assortment, mostly youthful college students and others in the 20s and 30s. They don't have a real agenda, a real focus. Some of their own protesters, who have said that they are really not quite sure why they're there. But I agree that the nucleus of this, and it will probably be accentuated if unemployment stays where it is or goes up in the United States, the nucleus is economic discontent. But they should be down in Washington, joining the few that are now down there, because that's where the source of the problem is, the disastrous economic policies of the Obama administration, overregulation, the attempt to double down on this failed stimulus program. And let's not forget, it was President Obama who brought in the tax cheat Geithner, who's a Wall Street crony, and he's part of the establishment. And yet he, the other day, said he understood and sympathized with the demonstrators. So to me, the whole thing is a joke. I think it will accelerate to some degree during the fall, and then when the bad weather sets in, I think you'll see a big drop-off.
Do you think Obama's people right now are trying to make a decision about how close Obama should get to all of this, how closely he should identify himself with the Wall Street protest?
Yes, I do. I think the one strain that might lead them to try to identify with it is they're hoping that it becomes a mass populist movement on the left, kind of serve as a counterpoint to the Tea Party on the right. And, of course, some of the unions have now attached themselves to it. You're getting some of the usual spokesmen on the left, whether it be Jesse Jackson or Michael Moore, some of the Hollywood celebrities. So to the extent that it has that aura of legitimacy, if you will, on the left, probably this administration would like to attach themselves to it and benefit from it politically. But it could backfire, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Daley, his chief of staff, is cautioning him, because if it goes the violent course or gets very disruptive, and there's some evidence that could happen, then if he gets too close to the movement, it's just going to hurt him with the independent voters he's going to need in the general election.
What if this spreads to 10 or 15 cities? I mean, there's no doubt that they will get lots of media attention. Do you think it has that kind of firepower? I mean, they're trying to spread it into our own country this weekend. I don't know how successful that'll be, but do you think they can make it metastasize across your country?
Yes, and I think that's starting to happen. We're seeing it in multiple cities across the country. Nothing of the magnitude of New York, but it is spawning protests, even in the suburbs. And I think you're going to see that continue for a while. The social media, Facebook, et cetera, help to fuel it. But, the reason why I call these people narcissists is because how dare they compare themselves to the protesters in Cairo, who, whatever their motivations or affiliations are, they were protesting against a truly repressive regime and putting their lives on the line. And as you said, for the Iranians, who crack down on their own dissenters, throw them in jail, torture them, execute them, to talk about the American Spring, I mean, it just shows how absurd this whole thing is.